Now, tell us about surviving relationship storms. Tell us about this book. What's in it? Uh,
Hmm.
again, before you do that, folks, I want you to take a screenshot of this real quick. It's $20. It may be the $20 that saves your life. Now, I want to say this. I remember I was getting ready to buy a John Maxwell book, and
Hmm.
before I did it, I'll just leave this up here for a moment. It was $40. This is years and years ago, maybe about 15, 16 years ago. And I said, man, $40. And it just happened to be an older gentleman by me. And he heard me exclaim, $40. And he says, well, do you know who John Maxwell is? I said, yeah. He says, man, he was a pastor before he was known as this leadership guru. He said,
Hmm.
in that book is 40 years worth of information.
Hmm.
What he's done professionally for 40 years, merging the secular and the sacred. And he did it in 230 something pages. He says, you're getting 40 years for $40. He says, no matter how much money John Maxwell makes off this book, none of it can compare to the experience and the knowledge that you'll get from reading it.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know that. I didn't, and it changed my perspective on the
Yeah.
exchange.
Yeah.
The exchange. So I want you to purchase this, uh, not just because we're trying to promote it, but it could literally be the thing that lifts you from where you are and gives you the proper perspective so that you can move in a progressive way in your life. But man, tell us about the book. Take us into some of the areas of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. So this book is for married and for singles and for unmarried and for married people. For the unmarried, what I tried to do in this book was really give us first, like you said, a different perception of storms. So again, understanding the difference, what a storm is really sent to do. And then I tried to give us the things that I wish I had. There were so many times as a married man that I said, okay, I understand I'm supposed to know how, I'm supposed to, compromise. We're supposed to have these hard discussions, but I don't know how to do that. And so it felt like, we were just kind of like, I was volleying back and forth and just trying to survive the moment. Y'all know, that whole thing, happy wife, happy life. Well, let me just do whatever to make her happy so
Okay.
that, but meantime, I'm miserable. And so I kept saying, I don't know how to have conflict properly for me. I didn't know how to have conflict well because my natural inclination is to be avoid conflict, but realizing that avoiding conflict is absolutely the wrong thing to do at certain times. So in this book, what I did is I taught us, for example, how to have good conflict. Like there is a such thing as good and healthy and necessary and needed conflict. So I
Mm,
teach us how to do that. I teach us how to have conflict. And for the single person,
good.
you get to practice doing that because just because you're not married doesn't mean you don't have conflict. You have conflict in friendships all the time. You have conflict with your boss all the time. You have conflict within yourself all the time. And so how do we have and take this conflict and A, make it healthy, and B, make it something that we grow from, that we learn from, that we go closer to God, that we grow closer to our purpose, that we see ourselves in a healthy way instead of seeing ourselves in either be overinflated or to be, have a low self esteem. So how do we have a good healthy self esteem in relationships or within ourselves? The other thing I talk about is I talk about how to how to have a good season before the storms. One of the good things, one of the ways that you survive a marriage storm or relationship storm is that you practice or you have a good season outside of the storm. So what do we do to prepare for it? Because we know it's coming. So what do we do? What do we do and how do we, communicate? What are some of the things we need to know about one another? So I talk about the importance of knowing your story or knowing your partner's story and understanding, for example, how the way your partner was raised affects how they do marriage. How conflict using that in their home affects how conflict is going to happen in your home. How even if it's just something as simple as a communication style. I grew up in a home that conflict was not like arguing. We didn't yell and argue a lot, but when we yelled and argued, it was usually followed by something. It was a trigger for something. Whereas if your partner comes from a family that's always yelling and arguing, to them that's normal communication.
Yeah.
Like that's normal. So if you're always yelling at your partner and you're like, what's the problem? This is how I talk. And they're like, hey, I'm not that. To me, that's a trigger. You need to come to marriage knowing this, or come to a relationship knowing this, so that way you can clearly articulate, hey, when I get loud, that don't mean I'm mad at you. That just means that that this is how we talk when we're excited. And so your partner typically, because this is how interesting God is, God will typically pair two people who have totally different communication styles together. Just like God will typically put two people who have two different money styles together for the purpose of teaching us both balance, teaching us both how to be whole and healthy, teaching us how to communicate with people who are not like us. And so if we don't do that, we're going to spend years thinking our partner is yelling at us, when in fact, they're just trying to talk to us and show us that they're really passionate about whatever topic that we're talking about. Or you're going to think your partner is passive, when really that's just how he or she communicates, because to them, that's their norm. That's how they function. So this book has, Maxwell gave you 40 years. I'm giving you 42 years of, and y'all, seriously, I have been literally counseling people almost my whole life.